It's indeed a pride and a privilege for me to be in conversation with Mr. Rajiv Memani. If you could just share some of the thoughts, what is it that you learned from SRCC?
When you tell someone you're from SRCC, the mental brand that goes is a very strong brand. When you come into a college like SRCC, it's a great melting pot.
We often say that students should be into investments and financial management, and wealth management is also a subject which is taught in the classrooms. What advice would you give to youngsters?
So I would say that
what makes you understand the relevance of AI? So how do you think epic fury, which you just mentioned, which starts off with the energy crisis?
India has been navigating the global energy crisis very carefully.
India is one of the largest importers of energy. And if I look at our production from what we were producing 15 years back, our production of oil and gas has actually come down, while the consumption has grown at a very significant rate.
And I'm sure on certain days when you get up and see at the mirror, you realize that, okay, things are not so comfortable. Yet, what does the leader inside you at that point in time tell you, or how does it talk to you?
How do you manage your energy is very important. So your physical well-being, your mental well-being is very, very important. And I do think that if you handle success well, you will be able to handle challenges well.
Namaskar. Hello, everyone. It's indeed a pride and a privilege for me to be in conversation with Mr. Rajiv Memani. I'd say this primarily for the following reasons. Mr. Memani is actually the regional managing partner of EY Africa India Council, and he's also the chair of the EY Global Market Council. In addition, he's also the president of the Confederation of Indian Industry. If these are aspects of Mr. Memani which make him a very reputed person and a professional in the area of advisory, several corporates look up to him for his advice on mergers and acquisitions as well as smart capital restructuring. It is with immense pride that I say that Mr. Rajiv is the president of Him Jyoti School, an institution which takes care of the underprivileged girls in Uttarakhand, and they empower these girls through education. He is also on the board of IIM Sirmaur, churning out management school students which are the best in the world. And while he's on the boards of these institutions, he's also played a lead role in taking forward EY Foundation, which takes care of entrepreneurship, primarily of the women, environment, as well as education. So who better than Mr. Rajiv Memani for me to be conversing with? And the best part of this conversation is the person I get an opportunity to converse with is a product of our very own Shri College of Commerce. Yes, Mr. Memani is an alumnus of SRCC, having graduated in 1988, having done his BCom honors from this very premier institution. Thank you so much, Raji, for being with us and giving us time to be in conversation with you. Undoubtedly, you are a role model for several of our students. And if I reminisce your days at SRCC, if you could just share some of the thoughts, what is it that you learned from SRCC, which is still being used in the global economic platforms as well as in the boardrooms?
Firstly, thank you so much for a very kind introduction, and the privilege is entirely mine. I think it's a very important day for me personally. Sitting here with my college principal and having a conversation on hopefully wide-ranging topics and discussions. I think Shri College obviously was a very important milestone in my professional life, in my education life. The first thing it gives, very candidly speaking, is when you tell someone you're from SRCC, at least the mental brand that goes is a very strong brand, that obviously this guy must have done something right to get into Shri College of Commerce.
Everything right.
So I think that was very important. I think the second thing, I was from DPS RK Puram. There's a homogeneous lot of people that you deal with there, and when you come into a college like SRCC, it's a great melting pot. You have people with different backgrounds, all very good in academics, some very good in sports, some in other areas, and different parts of the country. So I thought it was for the first time you get that kind of exposure
Sure.
on a consistent basis. And by and large, children who are very intense and intellectually very bright. So I think it gave a very good experience to me to having interacting with these people, learning from them. And you can't put a finger on what you learned, but I think what it taught you was just absorbing things and being challenged much more, responding to that challenge much more. And I think that was a very, very positive thing. The third I would say is some of the teachers, professors who taught me at that time, I think they ignited my interest in some subjects, which was fantastic. I would especially remember Professor Girish Ahuja. He taught me tax, and his classes were, he used to come at a certain point in time, first thing in the morning, full of energy, used to deliver his lecture, do that 1 or 2 lectures, and then go back to his work. And the class, there used to be pin drop silence, and everyone was very intense. Everyone came on time, learned from him, and for me, that just engaged tax in my mind in a different way. And what was very good, and I'm still in touch with him. What was very good was that when at that time our former finance minister, Mr. Arun Jaitley, formed the tax committee to draft the new income tax direct tax code. Both of us were in that committee. So that was really, and I used to just be sitting there and, sir, ye kar sakte hain, sir, aise kar sakte hain. He said, nahi, ye theek nahi hai, waise nahi hai, wo dekho, waise dekho, aise karo. He's just an amazing person. That was great. And I think former principal, Mr. P.C. Jain, I think he talked a lot about business management, commerce and everything else, and made it, taught in a very honest, very strong intellectual base. So made you think and reflect on things, and got interest in management and other aspects of management, which was very good.
So wonderful to hear. And actually, just when you said that you were sitting next to Professor Girish Ahuja, it reminds me of that Indian philosophy which says सिर्फ 2 लोग आपके सक्सेस से बहुत खुश होते हैं, एक आपके पेरेंट्स और दूसरे आपके टीचर्स. So I think if you were proud of Girish Ahuja ji, I'm sure he was equally proud of having his students sit on the same platform, formulating policies for Indian economy on the tax systems.
No, he's a legend.
He's a legend. He continues to be, and his enthusiasm has not dipped at all over the years.
No, a lot to learn from him.
Yes.
About tax and about how to lead life.
And when you were thinking about the taxation and you were going to the canteen maybe to eat the samosas, how were the taxes impacting your pocket at that point in time?
Yeah, they used to impact. I think canteen was the best time of the college. I mean, you met a lot of different people. You went with your own group, and then someone was someone's school friend and someone's hostel friend, or someone of them were together in some city. And then everyone used to join and used to have a free-flowing conversation, basically punching at each other, no matter what someone said.
Yes.
And then having a competition of, you have to, if there's an empty glass, you have to toss a coin, and who can put the coin or a matchstick or matchbox into that empty glass. So
would get a samosa or what?
Would get some treat or something like that. So I think, it was, it was something that you looked forward to whilst going to college every day, apart from obviously everything else. And great meeting point with people, understanding people with different mindsets, thought process. It was not deliberate, but it just, when you reflect on those days, you felt that you made lots of connections. Even sometimes now, after 20, 25 years, someone will catch up, "Ye to ganja ho gaya, baal ud gaye, safed ho gaya, bilkul." You're meeting someone after 30 years, 35 years.
Any friends, if you could also name some of them who are from SRCC and you remain in touch with them?
No, my best friends are from SRCC. So I'm in touch with them regularly. I was with some of them last night. One of them is Rajiv Dalmia. He's based in Dubai. Then another friend of mine, Rahul Kumar, he also did his CA, extremely bright. He was amongst the toppers in college. Then Gautam Jain, he's based here. Timmy Sarna, he's involved in the DLF side, and everyone. So yeah, I mean, bunch of friends.
So good.
And there are a lot you may meet after 4-5 years, or meet once in 2 years. But the warmth and the ability to discuss anything anything that you're going through in life or anything they're going through in life, good, bad, ugly, or having just a blast together. I think that is fantastic.
Absolutely. And for the listeners, I must say that Mr. Memani has continued to be in touch with his alma mater. He often visits Sri Ram College of Commerce, and we have in him giving an award of revered alumni. Thank you so much for
No,
being
that
our
was-
distinguished
No,
alumnus
thank
as
you.
well.
It was an honor and privilege. Thank you so much.
Also, when we are talking about this, I think you have contributed a lot towards global economic forums through your advocacy and advisory roles. But what you must have been taught in the classrooms was in 1988, when Indian economy was still a closed economy and liberalization was still being discussed, but it had not been implemented. Towards the system that we presently faced for a number of years was moved towards globalization, and presently coming back to a fragmentation in the globalized world. How do you think the journey has been, and what kind of learnings from your economic and commerce fundamentals you can see them apply in the real world, and also from your experiences which you have seen that you have to change your strategies, whether it is EY or whether it is being the president of CII?
Yeah. So I'll try. It's a right question. So
yeah.
I'll try and answer. I think when we were studying economics, commerce in late 80s in India, India had a very different thought process, and honestly, at that time we were not exposed to anything different. So a lot of it was around 5-year plans, around MRTP,
Yes.
around licensing,
Yes.
around foreign investment, restrictions in foreign investment.
Very true.
And mid 80s, actually, the wind started changing. When Rajiv Gandhi became the first prime minister,
Yes.
I think you could see first time winds of change coming. But so 85 to 88, I was in college in SRCC. 88 to 91, I did my CA. So I did my CA, and I was in May 91. And if you actually say that was such, if you look at the Indian economic history, if you were to say after 1947, what from a financial economic standpoint, which is the most relevant year for India, you would say it was 1991.
Yes.
And I think for us at that time, I was contemplating doing an MBA. I joined EY. I was in EY Singapore for 6 months, for about a year or so, year and a half. And then I was thinking I'll go for an MBA. And then I just came back to India for a few months, and things had completely changed. So I was working with Coca-Cola wanting to acquire Thumbs Up, bottling companies, Whirlpool wanting to set up in India, McDonald's looking at trying to see how they have franchise partners. And then after that, the power companies were wanting to come in. And then we had the internet bubble, that Y2K and the internet. So it was such an exciting phase professionally. And, number of young people coming versus what was come in 80s, getting very good jobs, very good opportunities to grow. So I think it was a great time, and that completely changed the economic thinking. It completely changed how we looked at licensing. Was suddenly gone. There was nothing called licensing. Foreign ownership was completely liberalized. Free market was gradually taking shape, sector after sector. New sectors that we never thought of started opening up. Whether it was computers, whether it was telecom. I mean, I find it hard to believe that there was no mobile phone. When I entered the office, there was just a fax machine in 88.
Right.
One computer that was used for word processing.
Right.
And then suddenly, just the dramatic pace, which continues even now, the dramatic pace at which things changed. And the world became a very global place. And I would say one of the seminal points, and I'll shift to your other part of the world on globalization, deglobalization. What you teach, what you learn in college is your ability to understand the subject. The context changes at a very rapid pace.
Absolutely.
So understanding the principles of economics, understanding the principles of management, understanding what fiscal deficit means, what monetary policy means, what demand supply curves mean, what macroeconomics mean, what microeconomics mean, what is Maslow's theory. That may change completely, but just that context is a very good context to analyze things and constantly learn, read, and update yourself.
Very well said.
And so then you come back and you look at, and now if I go back and look at and reflect back from what happened, I think one of the most seminal moments that happened in the world was China going through a similar deregulation process, maybe 20 years before India started. And I think that was the first time when globalization started, when people started seeing different angles of globalization. A lot of Europe was going through the same way. Even India was challenged in some
Yes.
ways. You had massive manufacturing concentration that happened in some geographies. So when you have that kind of imbalance, and then that happens in one country wanting to assert itself, I think a lot of the people felt, what has globalization done for us?
Yes.
And that's when you saw the winds of deglobalization starting from, I would say, from the first Trump regime, and then, but not that much, and then you could see small things happening, and finally now what you see is, every country trying to see what is in their best interest, and the world has completely changed.
Absolutely.
And if I look at Indian, and you talk about India, I became the CII president about a year back. You started the year with Operation
It's
Sindoor.
been very tough time, challenging time.
No, I mean, it's for the country.
Yes.
You started with Operation Sindoor. Then you had, everyone was very excited with President Trump coming, India wanting to do a FTA with US.
Yeah. Yes.
And then suddenly you had imposition of tariff, 25% and then 50%. And any conversation that you had was around that. I think the response of India was outstanding. They focused massively on trying to say how can they unlock the manufacturing potential of India, what they can do for ease of doing business, how can make India more competitive by reforming the factors of production, opening up new sectors which were not open till now, trying to push manufacturing, make in India, Atmanirbhar. And then as you went through that, and as India was going through that, then you have this massive AI piece coming, particularly at the beginning of this year, towards the end of last year, Anthropic making, OpenAI making announcements which completely transformed the world of technology. And that had a big impact on how India was reacting.
Very comprehensive and a holistic response. I think you covered so many aspects.
I'll just cover one thing, which I think
Yes.
is very important from how globalization is shaping up, is the speed at which India entered FTAs, how they looked at diversifying markets. So for the first time, it took a long time for India to do FTAs. And as we had this coming, you had India doing FTA with Australia, New Zealand.
Yes.
And I think that is a very interesting phase to watch, to say how you have stronger, instead of globalization in a multilateral relationships, you have globalization through very strong bilateral relationships, where both the countries are trying to preserve what is important for them and trying to say, is there in that context, can you create a win-win scenario? And to be a trusted partner in that, for global countries to look at India, and India to look at these countries and say, I think we can trust them, we can partner with them. And I think that's been a very, very interesting aspect. And then you have epic fury right now, which has changed everything.
The economics. I think when we discuss about the FTA with the European Union and it being the mother of all deals, several things India maintained wherever we did not want to get into the agreement on trade. But on the other hand, several aspects we opened up, and similarly it was from the other side. So India also now realizes it's important to have certain bilateral agreements
Yes.
on FTAs rather than go with the unified policy of globalization. So while we are talking about globalization, we do understand that integration with the rest of the world increases, and whether it's from the current account or the capital account, the contagion effect of any movement in growth rates happening either on the monetary fronts or the financial fronts will have large effects on the other economies. And in this context, the triple F crisis, which we would often describe as the food inflation, the fuel inflation, and the finance, they are integrated. So how do you think epic fury, which you just mentioned, which starts off with the energy crisis, could have an impact on the food prices and the financial crisis?
Yeah. So I think if I was to give a context, and as I was setting earlier, you have massive trade surpluses, trade deficits, and then people trying to look at weaponization of trade. So I think that, and if you look at what has happened in epic fury, what's happened with Russia, Ukraine, the developments in technology, I think the definition of sovereignty has changed. When I was in college, even I would say till 4 years, 5 years back, sovereignty only meant geographical sovereignty. This is my border, I'm a sovereign, this is my border, I need to protect my borders. The definition of sovereignty has now changed. It includes sovereignty, obviously geographical sovereignty is important, but data sovereignty, energy sovereignty, supply chain sovereignty. So, I think what this has taught us, that everything has changed, and India has done a very good job. If you look at our GDP growth for the last 4-5 years, we are an outlier globally, fastest growing.
Certainly.
If I look at the way we have handled our macroeconomic fundamentals, on every parameter we have done very well. If I look at how balance sheets of banks, balance sheets of corporates, the way technology is getting absorbed in the economy, I think all of them have been very positive. The one area I would say where we have not looked at that closely, and I think we are starting to do that, is just the resilience in terms of outside of macroeconomics, which is what you talked about, which is about energy, which is, as we are going into advanced manufacturing, raw materials that are required to manufacture, or other critical technologies that are required to manufacture or to produce, whether it's from pharmaceuticals to rare earths to whatever else we may have, and food. So I think on food side, I think India has done a good job. I think there is, I don't think there is a crisis there. But where I think we need to do much more is on energy. India is one of the largest importers of energy. We import almost 50 to 60% or 50 to 5% of our energy needs, obviously driven by petrol and diesel, which is almost 85-90%.
Right.
And if I look at our production from what we were producing 15 years back, our production of oil and gas has actually come down, while the consumption has grown at a very significant pace. So I think India needs to and is starting to look at very seriously on energy security, which means first is to say those things which we can produce or control domestically, we need to shift our consumption in that area. So whether it is EVs, whether it is solar, so just I think greater impetus on energy transition, whether it's compressed biogas, whether how do we combine ethanol more in our sort of oil and gas needs, then how do we look at hydrogen, batteries and other areas. So I think we'll obviously see that. The second area is on gas. What are the partnerships that we do, not just being concentrated on one part of the world, but how do we broaden the supply chain basket, and how are we able to more effectively use gas, LNG, compressed natural gas, whatever it is. And I think we will see that change happening. And also for the medium term and long term, we need to look at how can we do upstream more aggressively in India. Post 2002, we have not had a big discovery. We have not discovered a big basin. So I think we need to look at our upstream strategy much more carefully. And I think the Prime Minister has announced Sagar Manthan and some of the other places and changes that they are looking at. So I think energy security, again, they're putting out schemes, PLI schemes on rare earth, and on some pharmaceutical things. So I think India has a challenge here. So if you look at India's trade deficit for the first 11 months, our trade deficit went up by 18%. So this is before the war. So in the first 11 months, the non-oil trade deficit, merchandise trade deficit, went up by 28%. The oil trade deficit, energy trade deficit actually was hardly any change, 3-4%. There was not much change, but the non-oil went up by 28%. And our non-oil merchandise trade deficit became close to $200 billion. Obviously, we make it up through remittances, through services exports where we have surplus, but still there is a gap. So if India has to continue and go down the path of manufacturing in a very aggressive way, I think we need to really try and see how do we get better control of supply chains, try and see how we get more technology from outside, try and encourage Indian industry to develop more technology, try and see how we can incentivize PLI schemes. And also as players in industry and manufacturing, how do we ensure that we are encouraging ecosystems around so that we are buying more in India, manufacturing those products which could be manufactured by anyone. It doesn't matter. But as long as greater value addition happens in India, you create greater resilience. India has got one of the most youngest demographics. You create greater opportunities for people who are joining the workforce. So I think that is something as we look at things and as India is looking at these things, as you engage with policymakers, I think this is front and center of what they want to do.
And very well said, because normally we used to often think that ONGC, Indian Oil India Limited, BPCL, HPCL, they were making profits in the erstwhile closed economy because it was a monopoly environment and they were kind of cushioned with the pricing policy. But despite the opening up, these organizations have continued to do well, which means most of the oil companies have benefited from the best practices, which many of you have mentioned. But a related question, not directly with what you said, but related is, we often say that students should be into investments and financial management, and wealth management is also a subject which is taught in the classrooms. But in the current scenario where the financial markets could be a little volatile, what advice would you give to youngsters who are still trying to build their wealth with the small amount of money from the financial markets?
Yeah. So I would say that I'm of the strong view that the earlier you start investing, the better it is. You don't have to invest in big numbers. You can invest some part of your pocket money or whatever it is. But the earlier you start investing and you start learning from what has worked well, what has not worked well. Some of the best investors I have seen, they started very early, investing very early. Investing is certainly probably the most crisscross street. There will be some very good years, and you don't need to be carried away by that. And there will be some very challenging years in terms of returns and other things. But that's when you learn, should I be all in equity? Should I have a mixed portfolio? Should I look at other things? And when you look at equity, how do you analyze, what is your temperament? Are you a value buyer? Do you want to identify sectors first? How do you identify good management? How do you identify good promoters? Who are the people who give you consistent return? And in a country that is growing at 7 to 8% GDP, real growth, nominal growth of 10 to 12%, the power of compounding is so high. And the earlier you understand and learn the power of compounding, I think the better it is.
I think a lesson for the youngsters, also from SRCC, our students, what Rajiv is saying, it's always good to be an early investor, but invest what is in your comfort zone before you learn the tricks of the trade and then become an active investor.
Right. That's right.
There's so much more in this particular section, but I'll have to stop on this section with one thing. You've been to the World Economic Forum and other global platforms, and we all know that the perception of India has changed, and it is totally based upon certain fundamental changes that are taking place in the Indian economy. But from the perspective of international market, on what fundamentals has their perception of India moved in the favorable direction?
So I would say there are 3 or 4 big themes that are right now prevalent in the global economy. When you go to some of these platforms, obviously geopolitics is something that is most discussed, and how India stands or what's happening in geopolitics and how does it impact India is obviously of interest to people. India is in a challenging neighborhood. I think everyone realizes that.
Yes.
But our track record of building friendly relationships across different countries, whether it's the Western world, whether it's the Eastern world, whether it's Middle East, other Asian countries, I think that is something that people want to understand, that what is the geopolitical framework. And I would say it changes, what it was 3 years back versus what it is there today. I think it keeps on changing. And when people look at long-term investing decisions, or supply chain decisions, or capability centers, which is a big theme, I think this is one question that comes. The second question is that is a big theme, is on the entire issue of supply chain resilience. How do you look at things? And there also, evaluating India on the supply chain resilience, on advanced manufacturing, particularly if you look at semiconductors, if you look at defense, aerospace and defense, if you look at electronics manufacturing, if you look at data centers and AI, this thing. I think that's been a big conversation, and in many of these, how is the quality of education, quality of resources that are there in India, energy costs, ease of doing business, and others. I think that's the second thing. All that matters. The third area, which is probably Now the most engaging conversation is AI, and how does AI impact India? Obviously the big names in AI have come from the Western world, particularly from US. So question is India innovating enough? Secondly, how a lot of these people where AI is developed, a large pool of their talent is actually working in India doing that. So a lot of the global CEOs, decision makers have a strong connect with what's happening in India, and for most of them, it's been an extremely positive experience. So I think that is the other conversation. Is there enough skill talent? How will AI impact India? What is India's policy towards AI? What do you think about sovereign AI? And the digital infrastructure that that India is going to create, and also how will AI impact some sectors which India has really used leverage to grow, particularly I would say IT services, technology, BPO and others, and how does it impact? So I would say geopolitics, AI, and sustainability. I think these are the big things that are discussed. Sustainability is another big area. The world had a very different view on sustainability 3-4 years back, 5 years back. It has a different view on sustainability. To be fair, I think India has been very consistent in their approach, and I think there is massive acceleration, particularly I would say in solar, in renewable.
Certainly.
And that's been a big push for us. Yes, this worldview of saying that we will completely pivot to the other end. I think there people are saying that it may not be possible to completely pivot at this speed, and you may still need coal for some more time before you completely give up on that.
Yes.
You may still need at alternatives, and then you'll start looking at alternatives like nuclear power and other things. So you're seeing countries adopting more and more of that. India just had their Shanti bill, or the new nuclear power bill that came, and we may see massive investments in nuclear power over the next 5 to 10 years.
In the G20 also, when we talked about one earth, one family and all that, it was so much about sustainability and the kind of perceptions which people had. They actually realized that it was not just a perception, it's a reality, and India is doing very well.
Very well.
And we do hope with the kind of policies you are taking forward, also at CII, we do see the Viksit Bharat 2047 vision of India becoming a $5 trillion economy. As you also mentioned, AI you brought in and steering the conversation towards AI. We totally understand that AI is going to impact both the demand and the supply curves.
Yeah.
It's expected to shift the supply curves of the firms because of factors that you've already mentioned. Productivity and efficiency is going to go up. And at the same time, it is also going to have targeted marketing, which means that the demand curves are also going to go to the right. Under this, your passion for AI has been immense. I think at EY, more than 83% of your employees have been already trained for AI in the last less than a year. And the kind of amount which EY has spent, more than probably close to $1.4 billion.
Globally, yeah.
What makes you understand the relevance of AI, and what, according to you, are the benefits that have already been achieved by EY in AI, and what are the future productivity potentials which are yet to be harnessed?
Yeah. No, I think for us globally, and the more you look at it, it's a very defining change. So how we're dealing with in EY is first focusing on what we call ground zero, which means obviously we do a lot of work for our clients, but we are also trying to see how are we transforming ourselves. So the first thing we thought was to try and see how do we transform our people, how do they get more, because if your people are not ready for it, then it's very difficult.
Yes.
So I mean, we have 45-50,000 people in India, serving the Indian market, and then another 60-70,000 serving global markets. But what we did was to look at our entire talent pool and say, you break them into 4 personas. So one is people who need foundational skills, then people who are much more advanced, having developer skills. Then the third is, as AI platforms get built and as you're working and you have to embrace more AI, the engagement people, when you're engaging, when you're working with AI actively and everything else. And fourth, ambassadors and others who are evangelizing AI and everything. So each 4 of them had their own learning pathways, and you could do 1, 2, 3, whatever you wanted. And we put a lot of content which we got from the best experts, alliance partners, engaged with other AI startups, others, and so that we could then very actively looked at our entire learning and L&D and over-indexed on AI. And we had each of our people at an average go for at least 40, 30, 40, 50 hours of training. Now, I'm saying that at an average, but there are most of them would be more than 80 to 100 hours. There are some who have left the firm, joining at a different date. And doing, especially for developers, okay, identify a problem that you think AI can solve, and then let's work week after week, 4-5 hours every week to see how it gets solved, engage with others and do that, do hackathons, do other areas. So I think it's been overall, for us, getting this entire AI learning journey going is very important. And now we're reaching a point, ma'am, where someone can say, this is my CV, this is my LinkedIn profile, this is my job experience, this is what problem I want to solve, what are my learning and development skills.
Yes.
So you feed that in,
yes.
and it'll give you the learning map.
Yes.
And it'll give you, these are the content in the firm that you can leverage.
Right.
And maybe in some areas the firm doesn't have that knowledge
Yes.
or content. So maybe you may want to look at it externally.
Right.
So I think that's where we want to go to, where it's like an automate self-serve for people.
Yes.
So that's where we are looking at on the learning and development path. For us now, we are evaluating each of our solutions, each of our services, each of our offerings to see how AI impacts. And I can give you whether we are doing audit, we are doing internal audit, whether we are doing tax, whether we are doing transactions, whether it's supply chain, whether it's strategy, everywhere it's being used. And I'll give you some examples. I think people will probably understand the impact of that. It'll take some time, but I think it's interesting, especially with the agentic framework coming.
Right.
So, for example, in tax, we have looked at all our knowledge and solutions. We have one of the best knowledge and solutions group. So, last 15, 20 years, whatever advice they've given, we've compiled them, stacked them properly. Then we have partnered with organizations like Taxmen and others and combined that. And then also our own knowledge, act, other cases, everything else that was there, we've now put that at one place and created a SLM, LLM, whatever you want to call that, but a pretty intelligent tax model. So as a client, if you are a company, you can take subscription of that, and basically there will be an EY agent who will always be with you. You don't need to engage anyone.
Yes.
So suppose you want to say, okay, I'm looking at setting up this new manufacturing facility in this and this. What will be the depreciation? Will I get this benefit? Won't I get this benefit? I have this. Will this create? If I'm setting up a branch, will it create permanent establishment? Won't it create permanent establishment? This is the technology transfer fees. What are the rates I'll have to do? So you will get that information firsthand. So the engine will give you, and the engine. The good thing about AI is the engine gets better and better, better and better. Then suppose you get a GST notice.
Yes.
You put the GST notice in there, and it will give you the first response to say, okay, this is the response that you can give. Then you can validate whether that. So you can imagine the power of this engine, and this is only going to get better and better.
Certainly.
Going forward.
Certainly.
So that's I would say AI. The other interesting, if I look at strategy, we are engaging with a client. This is not an engagement, but we are just having a conversation with a client. If I have to look at which are the companies in US which are unlisted, which have a last round of valuation being more than $10 billion, which have had a significant impact in US, which are these companies? So you get the list. It's not easy to get the list, but you get the list of that. The second thing after that, you say, okay, which are these companies which don't, where the model could be of interest in India? And they will list out, many of these companies. Which are these companies that don't have and that kind of model doesn't exist in India? So we'll further frame down and say, okay, this is a great concept, but this model doesn't exist in India. Then you ask the question, why does this model not exist in India? And it'll tell you this model doesn't exist in India because this is a digital platform which Indian thing is they're offering there, or because the regulation is such that you cannot do these things. whatever else. So you come to a shorter list of companies and say these are the companies which are doing very well transforming in the US, private companies not listed, having market cap of or last round of valuation of more than $10 billion. These are the 10 companies that have a tremendous potential. They don't exist in India. They have a tremendous potential of doing work in India. And then you say, okay, how do you actually, how will you implement these companies? How do I go about implementing these companies? They'll say, okay, this is a company, for example, this company, you know, they have said if you do a defense surveillance system company, market size is so much, this is what's happening in defense technology, government will spend, the wars have happened, these are things. They'll say, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. All this that I have told you in 5 minutes or 3 minutes was done in 30 minutes time. 30 minutes, you had a list of 10 companies in the US, which they believe don't have a model in India, which have a great potential of doing business in India. And this is how you do that. Now, this for a consulting firm would be 2 months, 3 months project. Now, what they have said is may not be fully accurate, maybe 50-60% accurate. So you still need expertise to work on this.
Right.
But the first base document that comes is ready, is phenomenal. But then you need the intelligence to say, okay, how do I tweak this? How do I make this better? This doesn't sound right. Oh, these laws have already changed in India. Or the market numbers they've given is not accurate. Maybe they've picked up from a wrong source. So stuff like that. So this is how our world is changing. I can talk about each and everything. I can. So now question is, how do organizations like us prepare for this?
Yeah.
How do we prepare for this change? Earlier, if we prepared this tax solution that I talked about, it took us 6 months to prepare. Now I can probably prepare this in 30 days, 15 days, because coding has been completely disrupted. So I think as professional services firms, as organizations like other organizations like ours, there will be a big change. When that happens, I don't know, but there will be a big change, whether it's in 2 years from now or 5 years from now, I can't say that. But we have to be ready, constantly changing, to try and see how we make that change.
Following up from whatever you said, I'm prompted to take it forward in 2 directions and 2 supplementary questions, so to say. One would be, you mentioned that big data is kind of self-generating, feedback loops are created. But this also leads to monopoly of that particular product that we are talking about. And in your first question, you said there was MRTP that you studied. So do you think we need a regulator for these so-called data monopolies that might be generated because of the feedback loops? And second, which is also related, is you mentioned that symmetric information is an enabler, equalizer, and now everybody would have that information. What is it that the students can do a little differently to still be able to maintain their comparative advantage, if not absolute advantage?
So I think your first question on monopolies is absolutely right. I mean, you can now see the sizes of companies. You're talking about during my earlier days. I remember in late 90s, if you were a global company with $5 billion of valuation, you would say, wow, I mean, this is huge. And now, in 20 years, you're talking of companies who have market caps of more than trillion. You have a Elon Musk company that wants to raise from concept to this thing a new round of funding at 2 trillion plus valuation. So I think this will, the larger organizations and the monopolies that they create because of data and others is a real challenge. I honestly don't know the answer, whether, I don't know how possible it is to create, to break these monopolies and everything else. But if these monopolies create competitive disadvantages where people have to pay more, or there's tremendous concentration of wealth and power that happens at one place, I think society and history has taught us that will change. So whether it was telecom companies when Baby Bell, 5 or 6 Baby Bell were done, or whatever else it is, I think that will happen. But innovation and AI is moving at a speed right now that you never heard of an Anthropic. If I look at in the first 2-3 months, total investments of $400-500 billion have been made. $200 billion a month is being made in AI in US. 60-70% of that investment is going to 3 companies. So OpenAI, Anthropic, and so I think these companies were non-existent 18 months back. No one knew their name. So you will have some of these things also coming up and challenging the this thing. So we'll see what for children. I think it's a I mean, I don't know whether I'll say it's an interesting time or a challenging time. I think But if I was to look at how, if I, on the, with benefit of hindsight, if I were at their position, I'm not fully equipped to respond to that, because I find kids today are much more adept at using AI and using technology than I am at this stage. So for me, the learning curve on all this is much higher. But for them, maybe the learning
It's
curve
already
is already there, is slower. But still, I would say that you have to constantly start engaging with AI and engaging with technology in everything that you're doing. And the more you do, and this is that 10,000 hour principle, right? The more you do, the more time you spend, the more you discern, the better you'll become. So I would say that's one very important. The second thing is that you have to be very careful that you don't get too dependent on AI.
On AI.
That it doesn't disturb your learning process, because eventually you will need the human intelligence also. So one of the very important things is that how you constantly use it, experiment with it, learn to be very comfortable with it, but at the same time don't forget the core learning, the base learning, the rationalizing, not just taking it easy. Arey AI mein kya aa gaya jawab, chalo aage chalo. That I think is the biggest concern, to say
Yes.
that doesn't, it should enable higher quality, better learning, better rationalizing things, than saying that I won't be doing it.
I think a very wonderful lesson that you've shared for the youngsters, at least. Technology should not lead you. You should still continue to be the leader of
Leader of
technologies.
technology.
That is what you're
Yeah,
trying.
you put it very well. Yeah.
Also, I inform my listeners that for SRCC, it's a moment of great pride for me to share that EY has collaborated with us, offered their services to train our students for over 18 months, more than 500 hours of training on AI, with modules which would be across first stage and second stage. And in due course of time, we will also be sharing these detailed modalities with our students. So thank you, EY, and thank you, Rajiv, for taking this forward with your alma mater.
No, thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Not,
No,
it's
I think
totally our delight to be connected
No.
with students who still very strongly feel for their colleges.
Yeah.
And this is what I also think is the reason why SRCC has been able to maintain its legacy in the 100 years.
Yeah.
It would not have been possible without the students such as you. And putting it in economic terms, I say the existing set of students are the flow, but students like you who are almas and alumnus are the wealth of our college. And may with this wealth continue to grow, and may you all continue to give back. But following on our next section, one can talk so much on AI, our students will be very interested, so would other readers be. But because of the time, in the interest of time, coming back to the last section, which is more of the personal front, you have spent close to 3 decades in your professional life. You have led corporates, you have advised them on several aspects. Some days are very challenging. And I'm sure on certain days when you get up and see at the mirror, you realize that, okay, things are not so comfortable. Yet, what does the leader inside you at that point in time tell you, or how does it talk to you?
Yeah. The human inside me.
Yes. On a challenging day, especially.
I think one thing, and I'll talk about it slightly differently. At my age, and I don't know how relevant it is for children, because children, youngsters are very energetic. How do you manage your energy is very important. So your physical well-being, your mental well-being is very, very important. And having the intensity through the day is very, very important. And having positive energy through the day is very, very important. Secondly, I think, I do believe that spiritual base and deeper understanding of yourself and deeper understanding of life is very, very important. And I think that happens when you open yourself up, when you learn to different things, so I think, and I do think that if you handle success well, you will be able to handle challenges well. And handling success is very, very important. I think there is, I'll share, and what I strongly believe, and I'll share it with a story. Last week, I was on a flight from Bombay to Delhi, and I'm a big cricket fan. and Jemima Rodericks, who is part of the Indian women's cricket team,
Yes.
was sitting beside me.
Okay.
And so I told her, as once we settled on the plane and everything else, and food came, and I was talking to her. I said, Jemima, do you mind if I talk to you? She said, yeah, no, please, sir, whatever. So I said, for me, the 130 runs that you scored in the semi-finals against Australia, I said your response once you scored that, and then after that you just went down on your knees.
Yes.
And you just obviously thanked God and everyone, but then the way you talked about your challenges, the issues that you were facing, how you were in and out of the team. I said you just exposed yourself to be just so vulnerable, but you gave such a beautiful commentary. So I said that scene. I said there's one thing, if I remember, there are 3 pictures. When I looked at that, as I'm talking to you, there are 3 pictures come to my mind. I told her. I said one was Virat Kohli, who in an India-Pakistan match in Melbourne or Sydney, he just, he hits a 6. And then and the last ball or the second last ball, and Indian team, which was just 26 or 30 for 4, and he just scores those runs. In a T20, it's very difficult to recover back. And India beat Pakistan, and Pakistan had a great attack at that time. I said, he just goes, everyone is cheering, he just goes silent, he looks up, and he's as if he's in a completely meditative state. And then Sanju Samson, in the match against Wednesday, he's in and out of the team, not sure of his team, and suddenly he scores the most wonderful innings, 97 not out, and makes India win through that match. And again, the moment he does that, he kneels down and everything. So I said, tell me what goes through your mind. I can't talk about others. She said, okay, let me answer that. And the answer that I'm giving is the same question I asked Virat, the Jemima was saying, and he gave me that answer, and I completely resonate with that answer. And I think that captures in many ways it also captures the essence of Gita, and it also captures a lot of other things. But he said, every day, the only thing that I do is put in honest practice. I just practice for 4 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, honestly, being fair to people around me, but doing my job in this thing. And someday you hope, and that's what happens, that when you're doing that every day, day in, day out, on some days, and you hope that those are very important occasions for the country, for your team and others, something happens, and you are just an instrument of something happening, where you're delivering something because of some other power or some other force that play. So whether you deal with failure or you deal with success, if you're not attributing everything to yourself, I think your ability to deal with that is much better. And that only comes through, dealing with failure. That only comes through dealing with how you deal with success, where you don't think, oh, it's only me. Maybe you are a reason for that, and what is in your control is the process that you follow, not necessarily the outcome.
It's a very deep learning that you have given.
No, I'm not. It's not deep. Most kids will say it's bullshit.
No,
that's
not at all. It's very deep.
But I was really, when I saw a young girl, Jemima must be about 25, 26, I don't know her age, and very highly successful.
Yes.
Playing such a great match. And then you look at Virat Kohli, you'll never associate Virat Kohli. He's almost animated, agitated, on your face kind of person, thinking and talking about like that. And then you saw. So I think you learn a lot through sports, when you look at these people and you look at these things. So I think that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, ma'am, is how do you deal with it? What will others say? So the big challenge with a lot of these things, when you face challenges in life, and what will others say? What will your family say? What will the others say? You are such, and that is the challenging part. How do you deal with those issues, and how do you process that? How do you have the mental toughness and tenacity to deal with it, and conscience to say what I'm doing is right or wrong, whatever. And you may be doing right or wrong, but how do I correct myself, and how do I deal with that? I think that becomes very, very important. So for any student, especially now, because you are out for us it was much easier. You're out in the open, you're playing around with social media, you're writing things, everyone is writing about you. You have so many, the ups and downs, and the volatility in life will be increasing. You have lots of mental health issues, physical health issues. How you deal with this, I think, is a very important construct of it. And therefore, reading, trying to know yourself, having time with yourself. Indian scriptures are so rich. Just getting better handle of that is very, very important.
I think if I just get in a sense of your very deep learning, what Rajiv ji is trying to tell our youngsters and others is no matter how good you be at your skill sets, but until they are also, you have conducive mindsets, things will not work.
Yeah.
And a spirituality angle will work, and one should always be in a spirit of gratitude.
Yes.
And always consider ourselves as just one of the works through which the entire task is being done. And consider ourselves as the agent to perform a service rather than probably being the doer ourselves.
Karta ho.
Fantastic.
No, thank you. Put it very well.
And moving forward to maybe the last question.
Yes.
If there are 3 learnings for a student of SRCC who's a student of commerce, economics or management, what is it, 3 or 4 things that you would want them to do while they are still at the college to make them ready for the future?
I think I've covered that, but I'll just summarize that in
yes.
my view. I would say for many of them, AI and technology is a very defining change, and it'll change a lot of businesses, a lot of business models, and they will see through a lot of change. When I started my life to where things are, professional life to where things are, is very different. And I'm sure where they will start to where by the time they'll end, I think it'll be very different. So how do you embrace AI and technology, I think is very important. And also this constant process of learning, questioning, creativity, I think that is very, very important. So I would tell them just double click on this, and also just get into the habit of trying to question, learn more and more. It's not a 1-year process, but I think just mentally being ready for that is important. Our education system still is a lot of rote learning, but I think that change is in the future times is very, very important. The second thing I think is to develop some all of the, I'm sure a lot of students will have interests outside of their sort of regular academics, education and everything else. So I would say to develop some of those things much deeper is could be a musical instrument, could be sports, could be whatever way. I think it's a great way to knowing the details of anything.
Yes.
Whenever I deal with youngsters who are joining us and everything, whenever I see that they have passion for something, it could be cooking, it could be anything, but just the detailing of that and understanding that and what is your ability to get into the depth of that is very important. So I think that shows how a person can learn if he is passionate about something, and also it shows your way to engage with, because I think it's very important how engaging, building wider networks, building wider ecosystems, learning from people, that's also a constant process. And I think this second thing of just ensuring that even in your critical years, don't forget if you have 1 or 2 interests, just keep on diving deeper and deeper into them. Or if you want to create new interests, that too is fine, but having that is very important. And third, because you're talking about finance and commerce, and we've discussed this, but investing is a good thing. Early investing, it teaches you a lot.
Yes.
Whatever you enjoy investing in, but just it teaches you a lot. See, as I said, I think India is a great compounding opportunity. So not just for wealth creation, but just also for learning, for understanding how markets operate, how businesses operate, how assets operate, how asset classes operate. The earlier, that would be one of my regrets. The earlier you start, I think the better you become, the better you get. So I would say I'd leave these 3 broader messages.
Yes, a great message, and I must say thank you so much, Mr. Rajiv Memani. If we try to say that what do institutions such as SRCC try to do, you fulfill each of the criterias, which I would say economically, environmentally, ethically conscious global citizen.
Yeah.
Thank you for being all
Thank
of
you.
these.
Thank you very much.
It has been a pleasure to be in conversation with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, ma'am. It's been my privilege, and the way you summarized each elements of the conversation, I think they are learnings by itself.
Not at all.
So you are not only a wonderful leader, but you are an outstanding teacher. So my compliments to you.
Thank you so much. It has indeed been a memorable day for me, which is going to be treasured personally by me, and I'm sure the others who are going to be listeners will enjoy it as well. Thank you for the learnings.
Thank you so much. Thank you.